Thanks for tuning in and welcome. I haven't picked up the camera in so long. I even didn't really pick a great time because the sun is already setting, so I'm going to lose the light really soon. So I thought for now I just prepare for tomorrow so that I can paint tomorrow. I was thinking especially after I posted several of my master copies on Instagram the other day, I was thinking I could paint one of these master copies because I started really enjoying doing them and realizing how much I learned from that. Yeah, so I'll prepare some pages, then tomorrow I'll be good to go, and then we'll be talking a little bit more about master copies and how they can be maybe potentially beneficial for you as well.
Between me filming the sequences before and me now recording this voiceover, I actually got sick, so my voice might be a little bit raspy here and there, but I hope you bear with me. I'll give my best to keep it to a limit. So before we jump into the topic, let me quickly tell you about what I'm doing here. Just talking a little bit more about the setup and how I paint in my sketchbook. So when I'm painting in my sketchbook, I tend not to get out my big palette, but rather just paint on the other side of the book by sticking a waxy piece of paper, like something like a baking paper, on the other side, and I use that as a mixing surface. And also for my paints, I'll keep them in my little tin box. It's an old tea box. And I just refill the colors I need. And once I'm done with painting, I just close the box again and put it back in the freezer. This way the colors stay fresh, most of them at least. Not so much the earth tones, but every other color stays fresh for a really long time. And this way I'm just saving myself a lot of time setting up and also a lot of time cleaning afterwards. And as we probably all know, thinking about all these steps can already hold you back from even starting the painting. So I'm doing everything that is needed to make my life easier. Okay, let's get into the real topic of the video. I'm talking about copies today. Copying other art. I'm not sure, it might be different in other areas in the world, but what I experience is that the moment you tell someone that you have copied a drawing or a painting, some people get really judgy really fast. It's kind of looked down on. Maybe a little bit of a similar mindset I can see around people working from photos, and that's something that is looked down on and not really appreciated. Maybe I'm wrong there. Let me know what you think. Maybe I'm wrong with that. It's a little bit of a hot take. But anyway, so I feel like people are a little bit hung up about that work has to be always original, to the point where they don't even differentiate between learning something and producing art. Hint, hint, that's where I'm hinting at. Where are we going to? And yeah, I don't know, like this talk might actually not apply to everyone. If your way of working is more expressionistic and not really in the realms of realism, a lot of, or most of what I'm going to say is probably not applicable to you. I don't know, I'm not working in these fields, so I can't really say, but I'm trying to talk about a field that is more realistic. So if you're trying to get better at drawing or painting, for realistic painting, then you might be interested in what I want to say about this topic. Because I really believe that copying can be extremely helpful for your personal development as an artist. Let's put one thing out of the way first before people get me wrong there. I don't mean steal someone else's art and claim it as your own. But what I'm talking about is copying for the sake of studying. While the old masters would draw from sculptures and drawings from their teachers and the even older masters, it's rarely talked about these days. At least when I was younger, I thought everything you do has to always 100% come only out of your own head. That mindset was so drilled into my brain that I spent a lot of years barely progressing, and I think instead of that, I should have looked at other people's art and tried to reproduce their steps to eventually take something away from that. And that's actually the point I want to talk about. Because I think searching for and looking at art that has qualities that you're eventually trying to achieve is essential for your development as an artist. So I want to suggest to replace the word copy with the word study. I think that that's what's all about for me. I love the old masters. They just had knowledge I'm thriving to learn myself. So therefore, I started to actually look at their art and study from them. And that means I'm reading about them, like I'm reading books, I'm going to the museum to look at them, but I also draw and paint from their art. Let me get a little bit more clear on how that actually should look like. Because if you want to do it successfully, I think it's essential to go about it with a goal in mind. You have to set yourself a goal. What is it you're trying to understand, or what is it you're trying to study from a painting? What draws you to a painting? What could be beneficial for you? Ask yourself questions about why you actually feel like you want to work from that painting. And then once you ask yourself this question, you have to make this question, or the answer to that question, the main focus of that study. So for me personally, these days when I do these kinds of copies, or let's say studies, I'm personally mostly interested in the light situation and how they handled it, or also in the color balance in a painting. That's what's mostly drawing me into a painting. So therefore I make this the main focus without worrying so much about other parts of the painting. For example, the drawing. You probably could see that I spend barely any time on the drawing and that I don't even draw in the details like the features of the face. It's just not important for what I'm trying to study from that painting. I rather want to capture the overall feel of the painting, the overall color feel or light situation. And I think that's where people, when they do copies, get it wrong. Because it's not so much about copying a painting from the left upper side corner to the lower right corner with every little detail exactly as it is. Of course you can do that if you want to, but I think it just costs a lot of time. And we all know time is valuable. And you also just might lose the goal you had out of sight in the process of copying. And yeah, maybe you just also didn't even really have a good goal in mind from the beginning on, and therefore you just ended up focusing on all the details in the painting. What I also like doing is, if the painting I'm copying also has an interesting portrait or a really interesting figure pose, I do a drawing of that in pencil as well. But in these copies, I never practice both at once. Because In a scene like this, I think it's already really overwhelming to focus on the mixing of the color and applying that mix in the right spot with the right shape. That's already a lot of work in itself and it needs a lot of focus. But if I then even throw in the drawing on that too, wow, that's getting really overwhelming, and we want to make it easy and we want to learn something and not make it extra hard for ourselves. So instead, I'm just focusing on one thing and ignoring the rest. And that makes it also for me much more enjoyable because you make it more tangible. So that's why in this case here, I'm making a color study without focusing on drawing. But in other cases, as said, I'm, for example, making a drawing from something without worrying about color. Something you could also study is composition, where you actually only focus on the big shapes and the small shapes. That is possible to be done in color or pencil. Or you make a value study where you're just removing the color, but you paint in black and white or white and brown or whatever floats your boat. So you see, just basically only focusing on one thing to make it more tangible. I think that way you're able to learn much faster and also, much more focused. And I think if you have to figure everything out alone, I think it's really hard to figure out some things at all. Which effects are artists often painting? What works for them? How are they treating certain things in paintings? How are they using their warms and their cools in the paintings? How they're using high key versus low key, high chroma versus low chroma, and so on and so on. For example, something you will see almost always in paintings, especially old master paintings, is that shadows are usually always warmer than the light areas. So that is, for example, something you can start noticing. And once you notice it, then you can study it. And also you'll be able to see it more often in real life. You'll start searching for it in your own scenes, in your own paintings. And with this practice, you'll train your eye and you'll train searching for it. And ultimately, that will inform your own painting. So you'll actually just improve your own paintings by practicing. All I'm trying to suggest here is use it as a studying tool to sharpen your eye and to practice mixing, for example, to practice what to look out for, to practice whatever you want to practice. Everything you learn from it, consciously and subconsciously, will eventually find its way into your own art and help you getting closer to where you want to get to, which doesn't mean you'll become a copy of an artist. If you're also just practicing from a lot of different artists, obviously don't just copy always from the same artist. I'm just talking about how it will get much easier for you to apply the things you learn from these artists into your own practice. And your practice is not your art, it's your practice. I think it's really important to differentiate these two things, and you should never feel ashamed of what you're doing to practice, and just, try to study smarter than harder. Isn't that what we all say all the time? I think it's a smart way to learn. I hope that was kind of useful. As you see, I'm wrapping it up. Now you can also see what I meant with it's much easier for me that way to just pack it all away really fast. The cleaning process of that is so easy. Obviously, take all I said also with a bit of a grain of salt. I'm not saying I reached the end of all. There's still a lot to learn from me, obviously. I just wanted to share something that really helped me improve my art, and maybe it's helpful for you too. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and consider subscribing to my channel if you like this and want to see more videos. But for now, I'll say goodbye and wish you a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you soon. Bye!